The Sunday school lesson for January 1st, 2023 is God promises to hear and forgive. Second Chronicles chapter 7 verses 12 through 22. Happy New Year to my viewers and subscribers. I am Audrey, and welcome to my channel, The Backstory. My channel presents events that lead up to each Sunday school lesson. The agenda is as follows. I will share the backstory, read the lesson text, and offer a brief lesson summary. At this point, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel and give me a thumbs up if I say anything that is of value to you so that the YouTube algorithm will continue to push out my videos in 2023. Thank you in advance. The backstory. Let's begin. Fire from heaven. Second Chronicles chapter 7 verses 1 through 3. When Solomon finished praying, fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. The priests could not enter the temple of the Lord because the glory of the Lord filled it. When all the Israelites saw the fire coming down and the glory of the Lord above the temple, they knelt on the pavement with their faces to the ground, and they worshiped and gave thanks to the Lord, saying, "He is good. His love endures forever." Temple dedication. Second Chronicles chapter 7 verses 4 through 6. Then the king and all the people offered sacrifices before the Lord. And King Solomon offered a sacrifice of 22,000 head of cattle and 120,000 sheep and goats. So the king and all the people dedicated the temple of God. The priests took their positions, as did the Levites, with the Lord's musical instruments, which King David had made for praising the Lord, and which were used when he gave thanks, saying, "His love endures forever." Opposite the Levites, the priests blew their trumpets, and all the Israelites were standing. Middle courtyard consecrated. Second Chronicles chapter 7 verse 7. Solomon consecrated the middle part of the courtyard in front of the temple of the Lord, and there he offered burnt offerings and the fat of the fellowship offerings, because the bronze altar he had made could not hold the burnt offerings, the grain offerings, and the fat portions. Festival observed. Second Chronicles chapter 7 verses 8 through 10. So Solomon observed the festival at that time for 7 days, and all Israel with him, a vast assembly, people from Lebo Hamath to the Wadi of Egypt. On the 8th day they held an assembly, for they had celebrated the dedication of the altar for 7 days, and the festival for 7 days more. On the 23rd day of the seventh month, he sent the people to their homes, joyful and glad in heart, for the good things the Lord had done for David and Solomon and for his people Israel. The Lord appears to Solomon. Second Chronicles chapter 7 verse 11. When Solomon had finished the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, and had succeeded in carrying out all he had in mind to do in the temple of the Lord and in his own palace, and here verse 12 says, "The Lord appeared to him at night and said, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a temple for sacrifices." Our Sunday school lesson for today begins with verse 12. God promises to hear and forgive. Second Chronicles chapter 7 verses 12 through 22. Key text. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Second Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. Verse 12. The Lord appeared to him at night and said, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a temple for sacrifices. Verses 13 through 14. When I shut up the heavens so that there is no rain, or command locusts to devour the land, or send a plague among my people, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Verse 15. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to the prayers offered in this place. Verse 16. I have chosen and consecrated this temple so that my name may be there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. Verses 17 through 18. As for you, if you walk before me faithfully as David your father did, and do all I command, and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne, as I covenanted with David your father when I said, you shall never fail to have a successor to rule over Israel. Verses 19 through 20. But if you turn away and forsake the decrees and commands I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will uproot Israel from my land, which I have given them, and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. I will make it a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. Verse 21. This temple will become a heap of rubble. All who pass by will be appalled and say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? Verse 22. People will answer, because they have forsaken the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who brought them out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. That is why he brought all this disaster on them. A brief summary. Solomon's public prayer of dedication is recorded in chapter 6. The Lord was pleased with the temple and the worship offered there. In response, God not only filled the house with glory and sent fire to the altar, but also plainly said that he had accepted the temple that was dedicated to him. But as the spectacular ceremonies ended and the people went away, a solemn warning came to Solomon. God's people had been punished in such terrible ways before the temple existed, and they would be so punished again if their wickedness demanded it. The costly temple, with its elaborate ceremonies and numerous sacrifices, was no substitute for doing right. Songs of praise could not take the place of upright living, and generous offerings could not take the place of obedience to God. Humility, sincere devotion to God, and doing right, only these three matters of the heart brought God's blessing to his people. God did not accept the temple gleaming with gold because it was costly, but because it was a gift of true devotion. The swelling praise of the vast choir was not heard because it was loud, but because it was sincere. The sacrifices on the altar were not welcomed because they were many, but because they acknowledged sin and sought forgiveness. The majestic temple and its elaborate ritual were acceptable because they were expressions of genuine worship, but they carried a clear and present danger. The richness of them could lead to pride, rather than humility, to worldly display rather than godly worship. True worshipers worship in spirit and in truth. The shepherd in the desert, the merchant in his shop, the mother among her children. Each one can worship as well as the king with a golden temple. Thank you so much for watching, and join me soon for the next backstory. Stay safe.